Welcome councillors and media, of course, members of the public. Now, we have a presentation which is going to kick off shortly, but let's perhaps just get through the first and second line of the agenda before we start. So could I ask Councillor Pipe to take us through the prayer, please?
O God, our Creator, bless us as we gather today for this meeting. Guide our minds and our hearts so that we will work for the good of our community and help all your people. Teach us to be generous in our outlook, courageous in face of difficulty, and wise in our decisions. We ask this grace through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Now, I have one apology today, which is Councillor Bevan. He did alert our secretary at the meeting, but it didn't go through a formal process of applying for leave of absence, which we obviously do, so members of the public know if we're going to be there or not the next meeting. But I'm happy to accept that apology, and I have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Pipe. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Notices. The only notice I have is basically the layout of how we're going to do today. I propose that we actually come back to the minutes after we've had both our presentations this morning, so we'll deal with that then. Any other notices? Conflict of interest declarations for the meeting today. There being none, I welcome our Hawke's Bay Tourism team, President or Chairman, Mr George Hickton, and CE Annie Dundas. Good morning and welcome. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Kia ora tātou, nei rata mihi, kua hui mai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for the opportunity of presenting to you today. It's pretty much a regular update that we have for you, but just prior to that, I'd just like to share with you some activity that we're engaged at the moment. As many of you know, we're coming to the end of a 3-year period that of funding from this council. We're also coming to the point at which we can say that when we set out on this journey, we had a number of things that we wanted to achieve, and those by and large have been achieved. But the question that we're asking ourselves now is, what does the future look like for the next 3 to 5 years? And there's no doubt in our mind, and I think in yours, that future needs to have as part of it a much closer engagement with the other entities that are involved in tourism within the wider region. And we've always felt that in order to do that, the first thing we had to do is build a level of credibility in the Hawke's Bay Tourism Organisation so the rest of the community would feel more confident in that association and engage with us in a more solid way. We're actually involved in that process now. Yesterday we had a full-day meeting with all of the people involved in marketing and promoting the rest of the region, and we're talking here from Wairoa right through to Hastings, Havelock North and Central Hawke's Bay and Napier. And we're looking for areas of common ground that we believe we could actually have a step change in tourism for this region. Because when we look at the forecast, we realise that there's a massive potential for us to do a lot better than we're doing right now. And while we're in growth, we think that growth could be stronger, and we also think that competitively we could do better than perhaps we're doing. But we do need resources and we do need coordination. So the thing that's on the table that we're talking about at the moment with everybody is, what's the mechanism with which we will work much more cooperatively together than we have in the past? It's been improving in my view, but we're not there. And we all acknowledge that we need a greater degree of, I think, trust and understanding of what we're all trying to achieve. So we started that process yesterday, we're continuing it today. At the end of yesterday's session, I'd have to say in all my association with this region and the various challenges that you have, we've made more progress than we've ever made before. So we're going to share that, the ideas and where we're getting to with both the mayors of Hastings and Napier this afternoon, and we're also sharing it with your own chairman after that as well. We would like to do it all together, but that's not possible. And that's very much going to be talking about what are the key issues and thought starters that we have as a group that we are united about, and what it is we think we could do for the economic contribution that tourism could make to this region over the next 3 to 5 years. So early days, but more progress than I've seen us being able to make in the past, because there is a genuine willingness to see a different future. So I look forward to sharing that with you in more detail. It's not going to be a plan that we put on the table within the next few days, but it's certainly a plan that we're going to start to work on that will have some solid foundations and some solid commitment, and our aim is to have that obviously developed as we go forward, and certainly before we reach the end of our current funding period. So thanks very much for that.
So
Annie.
I will kick off so we're really reviewing the Q3, so January through March period for Hawke's Bay tourism. So just to give a bit of a state of the nation, our activity that was undertaken through this period and the year ahead, but also in light of what George has just talked about, there's some bigger things on the horizon. So just in terms of our arrivals, year in March, our commercial accommodation data is just under 1% up year end, and private stays have had another great quarter in terms of growth, and so year end they're up 4.6%. Overall, that's leaving us with a 3.6% year result. The spend in the region, as I've talked about this before, we're now gathering it through the regional tourism estimates, which give us a really, really good breakdown of what it is being spent on, and we can actually get down right into the TLA detail, so we can start to see where Central Hawke's Bay is getting more money from X tourism service, or people are gassing up their cars in Central Hawke's Bay before they head through. So there's a lot more data we're getting on tourism flows and spend within the region. So 85 million for international and 372 million for domestic visitors spent year in March 13. So we're waiting on the most recent figures. Just in terms of mapping that and how we look month to month, obviously we don't change a huge amount. March, you'll see overall is slightly down, and that's because April fell in Easter. So what we're expecting is that April's actually going to be a pretty good month for Hawke's Bay. We had that wonderful period of school holidays, Easter, Anzac Day, and talking to the industry, that for them they felt was better than the peak of summer. So that was a really strong period. So April will look quite different, so fractionally down in that March period. That is just our spend graph, and the red dotted line underneath is the national average, so you can see that spend in Hawke's Bay is actually high and tracking well above the national average, which we're fairly pleased about. And this picks up, because one of our issues is always around how we record visitors who come into the region. And what the spend does, it allows us to pick up those private stay people who are spending money in cafes and bars, and it also allows for that holiday home market to pick up where they're spending as well. It's not just the commercial accommodation sector. Regions that are spending their money here. As we get into more detail around our spend, and this is where what we will use from a retargeting point of view. The Waikato figure is exceptionally high, and we're looking at it because we've got some concerns, but that's how it's come up. But if we concentrate on Wellington, Auckland, but interestingly also that Australia's number 6, and not to be forgotten in the mix, Christchurch sits at about 17 million, for example. So Australia does make a fairly large impact on our Hawke's Bay economy. In terms of activity that we've been undertaking, and we've taken a much stronger focus on video content. It's just a hell of a lot easier and more effective to get visual pictures of what we do and how we do it out to the masses. And so the top left Art Deco shot, that's a series of ads that we use. There's deco, there's one for younger couples, there's one for families. And we've had sort of just under 250,000 views of all those commercials through YouTube, and we've run many of them through this quarter period. We have also, in conjunction with Tourism New Zealand, they very kindly came down in January and created a 4-minute clip of the cycle trails. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it is exceptionally good. It's had 3,000 views, and that goes out through the 100% Pure New Zealand channel. But that's a real, they've done one of the Hauraki trails, and they've just finished the Otago rail trails. So we're the only 3 that have been completed, but Hawke's Bay looks stunning. So if you're trying to showcase and send a clip to someone of what we look like on our cycle trails, it's a fantastic piece of work that they've done for us. We've also created clips around the Big Easy, so an event that the Regional Council was a partner in, as well as Hastings and Napier councils. And one little clip on YouTube, and we got 34,000 views of that ad. So what we can see is where those people come from. We can see that they watch the whole clip and then they engage, and we get registrations directly from those views. So it's a far more targeted and measurable way of looking at advertising compared to sticking an ad in a magazine, for example. So Big Easy went well, and then we've just launched the Hawke promotional video as well. So that's just in early stages, but it's already had over 7,000 views. So that, from us, video content will just be a much bigger part of what we do going forward. It just tells a far better story. Digital also continues to be exceptionally important, and the website tracks very well month to month, and we are looking at some changes from an online point of view. We have quite a lot of websites in Hawke's Bay that talk a little bit about Hawke's Bay in one way, shape or other, and we really want to get to a position where we have a singular one-stop shop for visitors, because at the end of the day, many of us from a TLA, etc. point of view, we're all competing for the same person, and we shouldn't be. We should be complementary to each other. And just on that, in terms of working with particularly Central Hawke's Bay, they're looking at how they then direct their traffic to our site, and we'll create a special portal gateway into our site for Central Hawke's Bay as part of our new arrangement with the team down there. So that's what we need to start thinking about, because at the end of the day, the visitor just gets completely confused. So it's about making it simple for people to get here. Facebook's going gangbusters, and we're probably one of the larger Facebook followings in Hawke's Bay. We use it very much about what is happening in the region, and from an imagery point of view, and you get great engagement, and it's not a booking mechanism, but it's another way of just sharing content about Hawke's Bay to a broad audience that obviously gets fed on to their various networks as well. Twitter and our databases. So we have a good, strong consumer database, and that is communicated to on a regular basis with deals and obviously what's on in the Bay. In terms of media, we've had a great quarter. We've hosted 20 international and domestic media in Hawke's Bay the first 3 months of this year, and this was just one of the results that came through from the Women's Weekly, Australian Women's Weekly, which has a readership of over 640,000, and we hosted the editor down for Hawke last November, and then she's written this great, actually several pages longer. But what it does, it paints a phenomenal picture of the region around food and wine, but it gives us presence in those titles that we could never afford. And a page in Australian Women's Weekly to buy is probably $8 to $10 grand a page. And her trip probably cost us a few $100s in terms of airfare and some accommodation. So the value of hosting media in a consumer sense is really, really powerful. And in the report there are a number of other links to online results which we received from Art Deco Weekend, and we've had a number of media through related to Cricket World Cup coming up next year, also to which was the other one, Cricket World Cup, and the Indian Economic Times, which is an interesting... China, sorry, golf. We had 5 travel writers from China here who were all in New Zealand for the Golf Open, and they all came to Hawke's Bay straight afterwards to cover kidnappers in our golf product. So travel trade is, I guess, travel agents. It's the business end of tourism, and this quarter, actually, we're in currently is our busiest period from this point of view. Summer's all about looking after people when they're here and delivering a great product, and this period is about the work end. So in the first quarter, though, we were prepping for a number of shows. So Explore is a show where we take 14 Hawke's Bay operators to Auckland, and it went exceptionally well. Convene is more of a business trade show, and also Trends was planned. But we also host agents, and as part of our relationship with the Art Deco Trust in relation to the major events funding, we brought 8 travel agents over from the United States as part of a showcase of Deco. They get hosted, they then go back, they package up the weekend, and then they sell it to their clients and through their other agency contacts. So we've already had several bookings, so we know that works, and so as part of the major event funding, we'll be looking to do that again with the same company and running series of webinars and training for the next 6 months with those agents. Product workshops, I've just been up in the UK as part of our alliance with our our 8 regional partners in the central North Island. We had about 60-something appointments over 2 days and some product workshop training, but it was great to see the markets coming back. The UK is certainly back in terms of the numbers are up internationally, but the trade are positive. It's been a very depressed market for the last 2 to 3 years, and it was nice to see that the English are seriously looking at more to New Zealand than just the main stops. They really want to get into the places like Hawke's Bay and so on. So that was a really positive trip. We've also created quite a lot more collateral, so we've gone into the luxury space. Tourism New Zealand are heavy into special interest tourism, and so the areas that obviously fit well for us are around the premium space. Hawke's Bay delivers exceptionally well in premium travel. They are just launching wine tourism, which obviously is another great fit for the region, but obviously, and also golf, fishing and walking are the other areas that they're looking at. So we're building, and cycling, so we're building product that suits those international markets. And we've also produced a lot of collateral for China. So if anyone's going to China, we've got all sorts of tools in the toolbox. We have a series of industry meetings that run once a month every Friday with sector groups, so we're sort of much more connected in with the B&B sector and the motel sector, etc. And also obviously our major industry updates, which we've had one in that first quarter of the year. Events are clearly a very big thing on our agenda. In the first quarter we were very much a part of working with the team at Art Deco around the weekend, and that was a trade and media hosting event for us. The Festival of Hawke, we did a lot of background work with the team to assist with accommodation and the provision of looking after teams, etc. And Horse of the Year is a big focus for us in terms of supporting the marketing efforts around Horse of the Year. And while that's been going on, and it wasn't in the third quarter rather, but the Big Easy hit Easter with a vengeance, and we doubled our numbers from last year, so from about 700 riders to 1,600 riders, and we've seriously got to look at capping that event possibly for next year. So, and the essence of that event is the Hawke's Bay Trails, which is obviously where the regional councils made and other councils have made such significant investments. So it is an incredible resource, and one that that event particularly works particularly well. So I hope some of you were out there on the trails over that Easter break. Winter Fork is coming up next week. We've doubled the event for winter. It's gone from 30 events to just under 50, and we've doubled our ticket numbers, and we're almost sold out. So it shows you that if you put something on and it appeals, then people will buy tickets and they'll come. So huge range in price for tickets, from free to several $100s a pop, but they're selling well. So the formula's working. Cricket World Cup. We have some quite big plans underway for Cricket World Cup next year. We have 3 games, but we're very much of the belief that our main chance is around media exposure for visiting international media that are coming to New Zealand, and we are looking at hosting a cricket match at Clifton County Cricket Club, an Art Deco cricket match, and New Zealand Cricket's very keen on the plan. So we're just working through that. They're down in a couple of weeks to see the pitch and see how we sort of showcase Hawke's Bay to the international media at that event. So more to come on that one. And obviously the All Blacks test, which people think will be a sellout, but we want to make sure it's a sellout. So we're working quite closely with Napier City Council and others around what we do to really leverage the All Blacks being here, and using them, but also making sure we put on a good event in and around particularly Napier, and Havelock North's got some big plans as well. So our development plan, which thankfully develop a sound plan for tourism to align with 2025. So Tourism 2025 is the national framework that was launched earlier this year, that many, Air New Zealand, Tourism New Zealand, major players within the tourism sector at a national level have developed a framework, and we've spent the last day looking at how we fit into that framework, and it's a really key document, and one that would be worth, I can send a link round for people to have a look at. And actually Hawke's Bay is highlighted in terms of the work we're doing around seasonality and events, so we were pretty pleased to see that happening. We have to grow and continue to grow visitor nights, and particularly as we now get into our kind of slower season, it is about events, and thankfully we have a few big ones coming up over the winter months. Working with our TLA partners, and as George mentioned, we had a fantastic day yesterday, and that's just the start of, we hope, a really strong working group and coordinated group around what we do around tourism. And we think we've got the willingness from all parties, so we're delighted with that. Working on China still, it's on the radar. It is definitely something that just after being at Trends, it's coming, and it's coming quick, and we're going to have to really seriously develop what we do in that, and particularly from a product point of view, and continue to build confidence in what we do. That is pretty much the year ahead, and that's us. Any questions?